Hello, everyone. It is Peggy McColl. It is 4 o'clock here in the Eastern Time Zone, and we are live, and we are delighted that you're here. You know, a couple of weeks ago, I was having a really good conversation with a very special friend of mine about the big money opportunities. And there are a lot of people that are really looking for them. Where can you make big money? Where can you subsidize your income, replace your income, take your annual income and make it your monthly income? And it got me thinking about where these opportunities are, and that a lot of people are simply unaware, but they have a desire. They have a desire for more. And the first person that I thought of is our special guest teacher today. It's the extraordinary Jason Fladlien. I'm going to hand it over to him in a minute. But let me just tell you about how I met Jason. I was presenting for one of Proctor Gallagher events, and I was doing a particular subject or topic area, and I was one of the speakers or the guest speakers that had been invited. Well, they also invited this other gentleman by the name of Jason Fladlien, and he was going to talk about webinars and how to earn big money on webinars, doing work that you're passionate about, doing work that you love. And I decided to listen in. And I had heard of Jason, but wasn't really familiar with his work. And I listened in, and my mind was blown. And, you know, there's a word that Bob often says, or a quote that Bob often says that goes like this: by their fruits, you will know them. And Jason Fladlien has been known to be the $100 million webinar guy. And he's not someone who's good at webinars, not someone who's great at webinars. He's the absolute best in the world. And so I reached out to Jason. I got to know him as well. I helped him write his new book. And I really got to really know this man and who he is. And he is not only incredibly talented and brilliant, but he's got the most amazing heart. His family is his priority. He loves his children, loves his wife. He's got great balance in his life. And he's absolutely brilliant at helping people create multi-million-dollar empires by doing webinars. And it's something that everyone must and absolutely should be listening to right now. So for the next short while, what I suggest that you do is shut off anything that could potentially distract you from this brilliance, from this absolute life-altering information that you're about to be exposed to. And I'm not going to take any more time because you absolutely want to hear from Jason. So I'm going to hand the reins over to Jason, and I suggest you get ready. I'm here with a pen and a piece of paper. I'm ready to absorb and learn everything that you have to share with us, Jason. And thank you so much for being here and being willing to share with everyone.
It's my pleasure, Peggy, and welcome to you as well here. We do have a chat roll rolling on today. It's a little bit of delay from when I say something to when you respond and we can see it. We will see it. It won't be in real time, but it'll be as close to real time as possible. You will not be seeing a lot of this beautiful face here. This is only really at the beginning, and then at the end when we answer some questions, maybe I'll pop it in and out in between, but really I have a presentation built for you today. So what I'm going to attempt to do is I'm going to attempt to share my screen here. So I'm going to move this over to the other slide, or one of my other screens. I'm going to put share screen number 2 here, and then I am going to go into full screen. So if you see this full screen, how to create $1 million webinars, in the chat roll, affirm for me that you see that. In fact, say, yes, Jason, I see this, or say, I'm ready to go, Jason, or confirm to me that you hear my voice and that you see this on the screen. And like I said, I'm a little bit delayed from your thing, and so I won't know instantaneously if you will or not. So while I'm waiting for the first yeses to come in on that, and I have, by the way, I don't know if you can still see me or not, but I have my phone in my hand. I have my teammates in my company here that are flagging questions for me that I will answer at the end of this presentation, and maybe even potentially in the middle of it, depending on if it makes sense in the context of what I'm going to cover here today. We have a lot to go through today, and I hope that this will be impactful to you, because typically every time we do a presentation like this, we see a new millionaire created. And that's my goal, is to continue that streak. So can you help me out with that? Go ahead and type in yes if you can. Now, I'm switching the slide, so you should see a new slide on your screen, and it says you're one webinar away. And the reality is, what does that mean? You're one webinar away from true financial independence. Now, financial independence doesn't mean that you're some sort of super rich person who lives in Bel Air, who has multiple sports cars and multiple vacation homes. It truly means eliminating the words "I can't afford it" from your vocabulary. Imagine what that's going to be like for you when you buy things because you want them, not because you're looking at the price tags on them. And honestly, you are one webinar away from truly life-changing, life-altering income in your life. Now, what would that do for you? So I like to look at it from the other way, because the challenge here today that I have is webinars can intimidate people until they get the easy button version of what I'm going to show them. But on the surface looking in, it's like, I got to get in front of people. I got to talk to them. We're going to dispel some of those myths throughout this presentation. But the reality is, when I say you're one webinar away from being able to do what you want when you want, I like to think about it from the other perspective too, not doing what you have to just get by. It's unfortunate and it's heartbreaking to me. And even though I've made many millions of dollars, and even though I truly do not need to work anymore, my investments actually outpace my expenses. That is true financial independence, by the way. It definitely hurts me, and it makes me feel to come out here and help the next generation of entrepreneurs online. Because here's the reality. Most people work and spend half of their waking life in a job that they don't like. Now, why is that? Well, the alternative is unfortunately worse. You got to put a roof over your head. The children need health care. And most people are one disaster away from complete financial ruin. And if you're just like most people that I'm talking to these days, that's a 1 in 2 chance I'm talking about you. And if it's not you, it's somebody you love. And so it's one thing to have these nice flashy cars where we make all this money with webinars. It's another thing to use webinars so you can say, I choose to do this, not I have to do this. It's one thing to say, oh my God, when's the next bill going to be paid and how? I don't know. And it's another thing to say, bills, what are those? Okay? Now, you're also one webinar away from proving to yourself and others that you truly have something to offer, because I'm going to make a guess here that I imagine is very accurate. There's a lot of people in your life that don't support your dreams in terms of going out there and changing the world and making a whole bunch of money in the process. They look at it like, oh my God, this person's going on in another scam. Yeah, too bad. They're a good person, but why do they get swept up in all this get rich quick schemes that exist online? When will they give up on their dreams and follow, the traditional model? Blah. That makes me sick. But I will tell you, if you hear enough of that, you start to have second guesses and you start to doubt what you're about. And you start to really wonder, should I be doing this? Is this responsible for me? And I will tell you, I've made millions of dollars, but nothing was more satisfying to me than being able to go back and tell my dad, after he told me I shouldn't start in business, it was too risky and I'd probably fail. And I thought, showed you different, Dad. That to me was worth more than the millions of dollars I made, to prove to myself and then to show to others, the ones that I love, that in fact, indeed I can. And I know you as a human being, you have within you unlimited potential. And we're going to bring some of that out today. Now, you're one webinar away from traveling the world, having peace of mind from living life on your terms, but only if you take the class. Does that make sense? This is not an intellectual exercise that we're engaging in here today. This is truly, if I show you something, I expect for your mind to see you using it in some way, shape, or form in the future. That's my ask of you today. Is that a fair ask? Let me know in the chat box. Now, while I'm waiting for your answers here, let me ask you this question: why webinars? Because there's a lot of different ways that you can make money online today. And I'm not oblivious to that. There's probably more opportunities to start an online business today than there ever has been in the history of humanity. And with more choices come more overwhelm. And what should I do? Should I do this? Should I do that? So here's my case on why I think webinars are the thing. First of all, the reality a lot of people aren't willing to tell you is each and every day, the cost of what it takes, both in time and money, to get in front of a potential customer, to get in front of somebody who you can help and who you can serve and who you can make money serving, that cost is going up. The cost to run Facebook ads is going up. The cost to run Google ads is going up. The amount of time it takes to get somebody's attention, that the time you have to put in, is going up. And in the foreseeable future, it will continue to go up. Unfortunately, the really simple things that might have worked, that actually probably didn't work historically, are not working at all anymore. Compare that to a webinar. The webinar I have found, and my clients have found, is the most profitable and impactful way you can start a customer relationship. Because there's something about a webinar that cuts through all the crap and gets right down to business in a very short period of time, and truly affects the other individual in a way that says, oh my God, I've been waiting for this my whole life. And that's how you start a relationship. So why costs go up, you become more effective, because the webinar is the most effective way to make profit as quick as possible and to make impact. And that's the main reason for me. The second reason is, would you agree with me that there's more noise, clutter, distraction that exists today than ever before. I mean, people are on Instagram, people are on Facebook, people are posting on YouTube, people are over there on Twitter, people are on Reddit, people are all over the place. We're text messaging, we're Facebook messaging, we're emailing, we're doing a million different things. It doesn't feel like we can go anywhere without being assaulted from 1,000 different angles full of information. How do you cut through that noise? How do you land with impact? You use a webinar. That is how you do it. You really basically say, this is for the person who is willing to put a little bit of time in to solve their problem. And guess who that person is? It's the person you can help most, and it's the person most likely to pay you money to get the value, to get the help. Does that make sense? This is the power of a webinar. And the reality is a webinar is pretty simple if you want it to be. Tell me if you have a feeling when you're trying to do whatever it is you're trying to do online right now that it kind of looks like this, right? You got to do this, and then there's that process, and then you got to have these websites, and you got to have these complicated follow-up procedures, and then there's retargeting, and then there's remarketing, and then there's this 15-step process, and then there's blah, 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 blah. It's like, forget that. If it takes that much effort to get rich, I'd rather remain poor. Webinars say most of these things don't matter. They make very little difference one way or another. And webinars focus on the few things that matter. These are the only three things you need to build at least a 6-figure business per year in profit. And then usually it goes 6 and then it becomes 7 and potentially even 8, because I've gotten all the way up to 8 in a single year. That's where I'm at right now. So these are the only 3 elements you need. So write these down, please, because it will help you conceptualize from start to finish. You can have this whole thing in your mind and understand it immediately the first time I walk you through it and know exactly what to do. And how's that going to feel for you? The only 3 elements you need to know are presentation, audience, and promotion. I'm going to give you presentation strategies today. I'm going to show you audience strategies today to get in front of the audiences with your presentation. And I'm going to show you promotional strategies today so your presentation connects with your audience in the most profitable and impactful way. You ready for that? Now, just to give you an idea of what webinars can do from you from a financial perspective, this is the webinar that really kind of made me say, okay, I got something here. So I did a webinar for the biggest online promotion of all time, of course, called Amazing Selling Machine. And we were the only ones really doing webinars for it. And so therefore we made most of the profit. Actually, within a 7-day period of time, we generated over $10 million because this screenshot occurred before the cart closed. So I didn't, and unfortunately I didn't get the real screenshot, but we did over $10 million in 8 days promoting somebody else's product as a webinar. So immediately this should strike down an objection that a lot of people have. They say, Jason, I can't do a webinar until I have a good product. This was not my product. This was somebody else's product. There are a million good products out there, but unfortunately there are almost no good webinars because people don't know what they're doing. It's not that they're hard, just people just don't know the process. So this is what's possible with webinars. Now, this took me a couple years to get here. Would it be okay with you if it took you a couple years? If you start at 6, go to 7, and then go to 8, all right? Now, what is possible with webinars? So this is Ben Cummings. He's a client of mine. And the first webinar he ever did $1.2 million in 3 days. Now, I'm not expecting you to do this. This is an outlier. Ben is one of the few people who immediately made $1 million the first time he used my webinars. But the point is the point, isn't it? Where else do you know, can you take a technique, put it into work the first time you put it into work and use it, and make $1 million. Now, one of Ben's secrets is he literally printed off word for word phrases that I give him in my training program called Genius Webinars, and he just read them out loud in front of his audience. And even better, he told them, I'm going to read this to you. And they were fine with that because good communication is good communication, isn't it? And I've done webinars for Tony Robbins and coached and trained him and his team on those. I wrote a webinar script that Larry King gave, and we did it with Peter Diamandis there, who's in the middle of us taking that selfie there. Peter is one of the top 50 most influential people, according to, I believe it was Time Magazine. He's got multiple billion-dollar ventures that exist out there, including mining asteroids and all kinds of crazy stuff. He was the first guy to launch a private spaceship into space. His company that he designed did that. So webinars have allowed me to work with the top of the top, the best of the best. And they are just as clueless as anybody is when it comes to webinar. They don't know the system. They don't understand what's important. And it's very easy to take clients like these on any level and put a webinar in place for them in their business and make a lot of profit, get you the power and notoriety that you deserve, which will then allow you to continue to produce revenue. This is the most important thing before we break down the elements of the webinar and their success that you need to understand. Webinars are a way that I love because they will make you immediate cash, but not at the expense of long-term wealth. Let me unpack that for you just a little bit more, if I could, please. There are a lot of things that you can do today that might make you money tomorrow. But usually that money is short-lived because if they're too easy to make money right away, they probably don't have any longevity to them. If they're little hacks or tricks, I'm not above hacks and tricks, okay? But I know that they don't last that long. They come and they go. But a webinar is something that makes the sale today, but then sells the audiences on engaging with you further in the future. So it sets you up today to make immediate income so you don't have to sacrifice waiting 6 months or 9 months or 12 months or even a month. You could be making money next week, but not at the expense of long-term wealth, which is where all the money actually is. 1 or 2 good webinars is like an annuity. It'll keep making you money almost in perpetuity. And the more people who see it, the more money it will make you because you're serving before you're selling. Got it? Serving before selling. Now, these are the 3 elements that I discuss here for webinar success: presentation, audience, and promotion. Of these 3, what do you suppose is the most important element? There's one element that is so incredibly important that it's more important than the other 2 combined. And what would that element be? That element is the presentation. So it doesn't make sense that we start there. Yeah, absolutely. Let's talk about the presentation. So I have sold over $100 million on webinars. I believe it was Entrepreneur Magazine recently published an article calling me the $100 million man. And this is the framework that I developed over 11 years and over countless thousands of hours of doing webinars, writing them for myself and writing them for clients. And I just discovered that when it comes to the presentation, there are 4 elements: intro, content, transition, and close. And within these 4 elements, there's only a few things you need to do that are going to make or break your webinar success. And isn't that wonderful? Because once you know what the targets are, isn't it a lot easier to hit them? The answer is, of course it is. So just so you know, the goal of every webinar that I do and the goal of every webinar that you should do is what? And I will tell you, I've asked this to 1 million people at this point, and maybe 1% or 1% of 1% actually know the answer to this. Knowing the answer to this alone should level up your income earning potential. The goal of every webinar is to what? Here it is. You ready for it? The goal of every webinar is to create a behavioral change in your audience. So whatever they're currently doing right now that is limiting to them, your webinar allows them a new perspective to see a new way of doing something. And that opens up a possibility for them to get a result that they didn't think they could get before. Does that make sense? You need to write this down and understand this, because once we change the behavior possibilities in your audience, then whatever you offer to the audience, as long as it is in congruence, as long as it is along the same lines, they will say yes almost every single time. Nobody will say yes to something that they don't think they can do. And everybody who gets on a webinar is in one way, shape, or form limited in their ability to handle their problems. So when you install within them a new way of looking at their problem, a new opportunity to behave in a different way to get a better result, then when you put an offer in front, it'll be so clear to your audience that by spending money to get that, they're getting the better end of the deal, not you. You pull that off, everything else becomes easier. The whole system that I've designed is in order to accomplish that, even if you don't know how that's done. It's kind of like electricity. I don't know how electricity works, but I do know if I flip the switch, what happens? The light comes on, doesn't it? All right, so let's break down the 4 parts. There are only 4 parts that you need to be thinking about when you create your webinar. The first part is the introduction. Now, what's important about the introduction? The introduction, the goal of the introduction is to, within the first 5 minutes, get your audience to conclude, oh my God, I've heard X number of people talk about this subject, Y number of hours, and this one person in front of me within the first few minutes has given me more insight and has made me more excited than all the rest combined. There are only 5 things you need to do in order for that to happen. Now, I will tell you, how do most people do webinar introductions? The answer is, unfortunately, pretty bad, and then it just gets worse from there. There is no systematic way of accomplishing what I just described. At least nobody's teaching it. Most people kind of just guess, but fuzzy targets don't get hit. There is systematic ways of creating authority, regardless of who you are. There's not a single person on this planet who I couldn't sit down and position within a few minutes of not having absolute authority. Every single one of you, I can make an extreme authority, because we get to pick, and you get to choose what you want to be an authority in for your webinar. And boom, now if you have the authority, they will listen to every single thing you say. Commitment. Your introduction needs commitment, because people, if they're not committed to act upon what you show them, then you're just talking at them. You're not connecting with them. So there's some very simple, most of these are just questions you can copy from me to get commitment. We get people to commit in the very beginning before we show them anything, because commitment will lead to action, and action will lead to buying. Objections, we have to bring these up right away, because objections are so important to handle to get past to make the sale that it's foolish, isn't it, just to wait until the end to handle them? You got to handle them at the beginning. Otherwise, if somebody has a cup full of water and you pour more water into it, what happens? The water just spills out. Nothing takes. We give hope. We give intrigue. Now, here's what you need to do for your introduction, all right? This is what I do. $100 million plus later, from my first million to the 100 million, I sit down, and before I ever write a webinar, I say, how am I going to obtain authority status? How am I going to create commitment? What are the objections, and how I'm going to address them in the beginning? How will I foster hope for the future related to this topic? What kind of mystery and intrigue can I set up in place to pay off later on during the webinar? Now, I will tell you, if you don't even know technique, and there's plenty of easy technique on authority, I know all the techniques to get authority, and I could show them to you in a lazy afternoon. If you don't know any technique for commitment, I have several different ways that I can show you commitment technique, and you can just pick the one that makes the most sense for you. If you don't know about objections, there are universal objections related to any presentation. You can just pluck and pull those in there. If you don't know any of these things, I will tell you, it still doesn't matter when you're just starting out, because literally just a little preparation goes a long ways. Don't you agree with me that just sitting down and getting a little bit clearer before you try to create the webinar, not only will that be easier to make the webinar, but won't it be more powerful? The answer is, of course. Authority. How we show them that you're someone that they should listen to and follow. Commitment. What are things that if they agreed to would make them more likely to buy what you're selling at the end of the webinar? Objections. What are the key things related to what you're selling? How can you address them directly or indirectly in the intro? Fostering hope for the future. What is life going to be like once the pain goes away, once the problem is solved? What are cliffhangers and mysteries you can bring at the beginning of the webinar that you can pay off and reveal during the later part of the webinar, so they pay more attention to what you're saying? That's section number one. If you do this correctly, people will say, oh my goodness, I'm so glad I've been here today. I can see that there's some potential here, and I'm willing to give this my full attention and be open to the possibilities of going even further. Then you get into the content section. So the content section, it runs about 45 to 60 minutes, and people say to me, Jason, nobody sits on a webinar for an hour. Who's going to listen to a webinar for 2 hours or whatever? And I say, okay, do people watch movies? And aren't movies 2 hours long? You know, Peggy can tell you how many people read books. And don't books take several hours to read? The answer is, the people you can help the most are the ones that everybody else is saying, let's only give them 1 or 2 or 3 little tiny minutes of focus. And you come in and you give them a full focus, and they will thank you and appreciate you, because they're the people most likely to need what you have and be most receptive to what you have. And then, of course, invest, because you can help them even more. So the content portion of this, though, is not to give information. Information will occur. An exchange of information will occur. There's no doubt about that. But the goal here is to influence new behavior. So you have to demonstrate whatever you're helping somebody understand better. You have to demonstrate it in a way where there's confidence, where there once was uncertainty, where there's excitement when there was once dread. You have to show somebody that this is easier to do than not doing anything, that it's more painful to not do this than to do this. And you'll have to trust me on this, but just tell me if this makes sense to you after I say it to you when it's related to this content portion here. Don't you believe that the real powerful content is less, not more? And what do I mean by that? A lot of people try to drown you in a whole bunch of information, and that just leaves you confused. And it doesn't convey that person has a clear understanding of helping you, right? But if I can just give you a few key takeaways and I can present it with utter simplicity, wouldn't you agree with me that's more likely to help you out? The answer is yes, isn't it? I mean, you can tell so in your own very experience in your life. Now, we do this through a process, just like everything. If it's worth doing, it's worth systematizing. Write that down. And if you don't know how to systematize something, you should pay somebody else who's already systematized it, because that will be cheaper than trying to figure it out on your own. So here's the system. When I sit down and say, okay, now that the introduction has got people most receptive to listening to me and most likely to be open to possibilities that will allow them to be better and invest to get better, what am I going to show them and how am I going to show them? Here's what we do. You come up with a defined outcome. In one single sentence, what's something that someone will be able to do after the webinar that they couldn't do before the webinar, that they want to do? Then you say, how do I break that down? Usually it's 3 to 5 steps. First do this, second do this, third do this, fourth do this. That alone makes it manageable for your audience. It's not that you're giving better information than the next person. You are just presenting that information in a more effective fashion. Then you create a visual roadmap, because it's very hard for your audience who suffers from a problem to know where they're at, what has happened before, and what will happen next. That alone will gain you so much clarity that every word you speak will have 10 times more effectiveness. Now, again, with information, a lot of this is contextualized, a lot of this is visualized, and a lot of this is commitment. And so for each step, we do those things. And they're very simple, they're very formulatic, but it's important for you to tell somebody just not, hey, if you want to lose weight, cut your arm off, because that's not the appropriate context. They don't want to lose weight. They want to feel better, have more energy, live longer. So there's just a matter of presenting the same information, but in a different way. Show, not tell. Chunk it down and get very specific, because specifics beat generalities any day of the week, and then connect the dots. And this is a simple process. I'm very confident that any one of you, if you've learned how to use a smartphone without a manual or a rule book, this is about 50 times easier than that. Now, here's what gets a lot of people when they do their webinars. They are so scared to sell. I will tell you, I'm scared to sell, even to this day. And I know that sounds absurd, but let me explain why. If I look at selling as I'm going to do this thing to you, then that's manipulative, isn't it? Of course you should feel uncomfortable in a situation. But if I look at it from a different perspective of, if this is the right thing for you and it will help you far more in the value it gives you than the money you exchange to get it, how do I connect this to you in a way so you can properly evaluate that to see if that's true or not? Now I'm not selling anymore. I'm assisting. I'm assisting you to see if it makes sense for you to buy, and that's a whole different deal. Now, you might say, Jason, how do I do that mentally? Is there some sort of trick or some mental exercise? No, forget that. Just follow the system. Can you do that for me? Because the system is automatically designed to produce that outcome for you. The reality is, any webinar that you perform, here's the problem with the content. 50% of all the information you give to somebody on a webinar will be forgotten within the 2 minutes of hearing it. So let me say that again. This is very important. Every other word you say will be forgotten almost immediately after you have said it, consciously. Information is hard to take in. It's hard to retain the first time somebody hears it. And so what'll happen is this. It'll happen to your audience, and they'll forget all the cool, wonderful things you've shown them. But it will happen to you as well. You'll forget all the wonderful, amazing things that you gave to somebody for free to help them. And when you both remember that this far, and we do this in 60 seconds or less, these are all the wonderful things we discovered today that I can fit into a 60-second session. Both you and the audience says, wow, that was pretty nice. And then maybe if I want some more of that, if I want to go deeper with that, if I want to have some accountability around that, if I want to have tools to assist me to accomplish that, would I want to know more? And the answer is yes. And now we are assisting. We are not selling. So the transition is what accomplishes that. And it's very simple. There's 3 parts to it. We do the recap, and then we get them to agree to certain things that will make them most likely to be eager to hear what you have to offer. And it'll make you feel so excited and feel so good about offering that. And then you give them 2 options. to move forward with you or to do it on their own. You don't leave them with no options. They can choose to do it alone, and that might make sense, or they can choose to do it with you, and that might make more sense. And most of these are word-for-word closes. I've developed them and tested them over the years. I don't know how important the actual specific words to use are. I mean, I just give them to clients and they read them as is. I think more important is the structure and the strategy. Remind in 60 seconds everything that you cover that was helpful and powerful. Get your audience to agree to certain things that they know are good for them. They were happy to be here today. They feel now more comfortable related to this subject. They realize that there are opportunities where none existed before. They're appreciative that even if they have to do this on their own, that they have more resources to do it now, and they feel better about the future. And then you say, okay, now you can do it on your own, or I can assist you. And that sets up your offer. Now, quick question to you before we move on to the close. Doesn't that just feel better? Can't you already appreciate how good this will feel? And don't you think that's going to translate into a lot more sales? And this the last question, because I can't resist. Can't you use this beyond just webinars? The reality is you can use this everywhere. And the only reason we really put the focus on webinars is A, I have a turnkey system for it, a fill in the blank system, if you will, right? And B, the webinars where it makes the most money the quickest. But C, this is technique that you'll use every single place, from one-to-one, on email, on social media, so on and so forth. You'll just make the most money with it on webinars, okay? Now it's the dreaded close, the one that everybody gets freaked out about. Now, of the four sections, introduction, content, transition, and close, the close is the least important section. A lot of people think the close is a make or break kind of thing because it just comes at the end of the presentation. The proximity of did you make money or not, did you help or not, did you serve or not, of the close and that revenue, they're just close together. So people are misinformed about how important this is. A better introduction, a better content section, and a better transition will automatically lead to a better close. And even if you're not a good closer, so to speak, even if you're not a good salesperson, so to speak, it doesn't really matter. Would you be okay being a bad closer and still making $100,000 on a webinar? Because I will tell you, if you were a good closer, you might make 150 or 125. But it gives you something to strive for. Would you accept being mediocre at this last part and still making $100,000 in a month or 2 or 3 or 4? I think you would, right? But the cool thing is this, like everything else I've discussed, is a system. My goal is to take the least amount of effort, the least amount of thought, the least amount of everything, and get the most amount of results. And there are 2 types of results that I strive for. The first result is money. That's the measuring stick. I measure how effective my message was to my audience based on how many of them were excited to exchange their money to get the value. But the second one is impact. My webinars, the more that they help people, then naturally the more money I make, but also the more they help people, the better I feel. And the easier it is for me to continue to do what I want to do in my life. Okay? Just a better way of living, isn't it? And that's how I measured the impact of those 2 things. And so really, to me, it's the less amount of effort I have to do anything and still get the maximum amount of revenue and impact. That's what I'm for. Now, I've done this. It took me 11 years. And I don't know if I was predisposed to be better at webinars than the average person. I don't know if I was born with some sort of talent or whatever. I think a lot of this has just to do with stubbornness. I just lived in webinar land. I ate, breathed, and slept it for 11 years. And then I think in a different way than most people. I think in systems. I don't want to rely on my own intelligence to be successful, because I'll probably fail. Instead, I rely on what are things that if I just do them, check them off, fill them in, they'll probably get me a success. And if they don't the first time, they probably will the second time. If they don't the second time, they probably will the third time. And this is the close. This is what I did for the close, because the close was the one that had the most amount of pressure, the one that freaked me out the most, the one that I knew was like, oh my God, we better get this right. And it's this: offer, price, bonuses, guarantee, objections, and you sprinkle scarcity in between. So in the first 5 minutes, you say, this is what I have, this is what it can do for you, and this is the investment to get started with it. You do that in 5 minutes or less. Now people know where to go to sign up, and they know how much it costs. The beauty of this is they can make their first yes or no decision right away. But that's good, regardless of what that decision is. If the decision is yes, fantastic. They didn't have to wait longer than necessary in order to get started with whatever it is you're offering, your product or somebody else's product, right? But here's the next part. This is what I like about it. If they don't say yes, it doesn't mean that that's a Firm no. The answer is they say no given the amount of information currently available to me. And that's when you focus on bonuses and on the value. And you spend more time on the bonuses of what they get for free than you do with what you're selling them. Because first of all, free is the most powerful word in advertising, isn't it? But second of all, people make poor decisions if they only look at the price tag and they don't look at what the thing can do for you. And so this system automatically fixes that. We go to the bonuses, we go to the guarantee, and then we handle the objections. This is very systematic. So every time I make an offer, I follow this exact same formula. This is the presentation. Now, obviously, there's more to it. And if you want to explore this with me further, if you want to use my templates, if you want to use my fill-in-the-blank stuff, I would love and be happy to put that in your hands. But even if I didn't, don't you agree with me? You now feel a lot more comfortable with presentations, not just webinars, right? Isn't this a more effective way of communication in all shapes and forms? Okay, great. So that's your presentation, but a presentation that nobody sees will make you exactly $0. So we got to get it in front of an audience, and not just any audience, an audience who would be most receptive to say yes to whatever it is that you're focusing on in that presentation. Now, I know today, as I speak to you on this webinar, you're in one of two places. The first position is you already have an audience you can reach. Fantastic. Webinars within my framework will be the easiest way for you to make an immediate short-term win, make money ASAP, and also set you up to continue to make even more money for the same amount of effort. And so, for example, I do not know who you are today, probably. You and I probably have never interacted before online or otherwise, yet here I am in front of you today because Peggy already has an audience. And there are, there's only one Peggy out there. She is a wonderful, special person. But there are many people like Peggy who have attracted audiences who are willing to put the right presenters in front of those audiences. Now, if you have an audience already and you haven't done a webinar the way that I showed you, that audience is missing out on the best you, the most impactful you. And then therefore you're missing out on the most profitable you. So immediately you should say, okay, as soon as possible, when can I, as fast as humanly possible, put together a presentation and put it in front of my audience? It doesn't even matter if it's something you've sold to them before, because a webinar sold to the same list, selling the same thing that was sold in a different fashion before, will probably make double the amount of money to the same audience who had already said no, because the webinar is a more effective persuasion tool. But here's where you more likely find yourself. You don't have an audience you can reach yet. You don't have your own audience. And your inclination is probably, Jason, let me go out and start building all these Facebook funnels. Jason, let me go out and do all these paid advertising. Jason, let me do some SEO, or Jason, let me do something like that. No, that's too long. It takes too long. It's unnecessary, and it's less profitable. If you don't have an audience, the question to you is this: do you know someone who already has an audience who you can help better serve that audience with a webinar and make a bunch of money in the process? And if you don't have that person, or don't know that person yet, do you think in a short amount of time you could find them if you knew how to look for them? Now, this is really interesting because this is one of the hardest parts of what I have to do. It drives me nuts because I see within you unlimited potential. You are a creation from God, and you have the strongest computer in the planet in between your ears, which is your brain. And you, more important than that, you have your heart. You have that desire that you can tap into. But a lot of people say, Jason, I don't want to do a webinar until I find an audience. It's like a chicken and egg scenario. First of all, the webinar will get you the audience. Second of all, if you had an audience but didn't put a webinar in front of them, that is wasteful and that is not helpful. And so know this, even if you don't have an audience you feel you can get in front of from somebody else, I guarantee you in 2 days or less, you could find that audience and they will be receptive to it. Now, in order to try to sell you on this concept, I decided to do something different today that I haven't done before. So I was on Slack with my office manager, Trish, earlier today. She's like my right-hand woman. Without her, I couldn't even survive. She helps me, keep track of everything and make sure everything gets done correctly and keeps me honest, right? So I said to her today, and she didn't know I was doing this. I started this conversation not too long ago, okay? It's like 1:30, and we're live, by the way. It's 1:39 p.m. Pacific time. And earlier today at 10:58 or 10:51 a.m. on Slack, I say to Trish, I said, if you had to guess, this has come out of nowhere, by the way. I said, if you had to guess, how many webinars have we promoted over the years? And Trish says, oh my, for other people? Meaning I am putting somebody else's webinar in front of my audience. And so I say, yes, affiliates, because we call those affiliate. We're promoting other people as an affiliate, their webinars. And she says, Well, that brings the number down a bit, a couple hundred maybe, if that. She's not sure. Have we promoted a couple hundred different people's webinars over the years? And then I asked her, probably at least 50 though, right? Certainly, or sorry, probably at least 100, right? Certainly 50. And then Trish says, maybe way less because she was thinking hundreds. She says, say we did one per month. Yeah, let's go with a little over 100. And I'm serious. This isn't hype. This is a real conversation that Trish has no idea where I'm going with. And I'm giving this to you today just to prove the point. So I say to her, Rapid Crush Inc., that's my company, has been in business about 96 months, considering we've done over 100 webinars ourselves to our list easily. I laugh, because of course I do webinars to my list as much as humanly possible. I said, I bet we've done on average at least one per month promoting affiliates, meaning promoting other people's webinars. And then Trish says, yeah, that sounds good. And a lot of good, even great products are not discovered because they are not on webinars. And I'm like, oh my God, that's fantastic. You're right. I said, good point. Okay, now a strange question. She still doesn't know where I'm going with this. I said, would it be safe to say that at least 10% of those affiliates who weren't exactly big established marketers or businesses, more like new to the game, improvement, etc., would it, 10% of the webinars that we have promoted to our list, and we're an 8-figure-a-year company. We're no small-time deal in this business. Multiple tens of millions of dollars we generate as a company. And basically, I'm asking Trish, how many people do you think we put on that were completely unproven, who have never done a webinar before? Their first webinar was to our audience. And then she comes up with a great example. She says, take ASM, for example. No one knew who this product was round one. No one knew of Matt and Jason, or maybe that was just me. But yeah, I would say close to 18%. So she's saying if we did 100 webinars for affiliates, probably 20 of those 100 webinars were for people who had never been proven before, who had no reputation, who had no name. And a lot of them, the first webinar they ever did was to our audience. And I say, that's a good point. 2012, when we promoted this, no one had ever heard of them. And they were in the game for 2 months. And then we made $40 million of selling their Amazon product, $100 million in total on all those webinars. And I said, heck, I can think of 5 times we approached someone who's never even done a webinar before. And she says, yeah, that sounds about right. And then and I said, okay, cool. And I go, this is what I'm going to use today to show people on the webinar that traffic isn't a problem. If a big company like us has regularly tested out unproven webinars, what about all the others out there with email lists who are open to promoting webinars? It's practically endless, isn't it? And she says, yes, of course. That's the point. My point to you is this. I got a little ahead of myself. My point to you is this. There's an unending demand out there of people who have audiences, who you could present in front of, who will split the profits with you, 50-50. That's how it works. And they need you more than you need them. Isn't that interesting? Because they have the audience, but they don't have that thing that makes the audience say yes. They don't have that thing that makes the cash register ring. You have that thing. And because there's so little risk involved promoting a webinar, a couple emails, and there's so much potential gain, so many people are willing to take an unproven person like you who's never done this before and say, let's just try it out and see what happens. And you would be shocked how easy it is, once you have a webinar done the way that I do them, to get it in front of as many audiences as you wish to. Simple as that. Now, here's what's important to understand. A great webinar presentation is obvious to people with audiences, and the risk for them to test out someone else's presentation and split the money is practically non-existent. There is no risk. There is only reward. And so the beautiful thing is you go to somebody and you say, hey, here's my webinar. What do you think of it? If they see your webinar and it's following my system, they're going to say, oh, wow, this looks great. Let's see if we can do something with it. And this is how you can go from nothing to $10,000 in a week or two, or $20,000 or $40,000 or $50,000, or in some cases, $100,000, $200,000, $500,000, even $1 million, as you've seen. Cool? Now, question to you, okay? We talked about presentation, gave you some tips there, audience, some tips there. Can you see yourself now being able to make money in a way that maybe you thought was impossible before? Aren't you getting a little excited to know that there are hundreds and thousands of people out there, that the only thing that separates you from them is a single webinar presentation? And that is the God's honest truth. The only other thing you need to know is how you're going to put that presentation in front of that audience in a way that has the most impact. Would you like to know how to do that? Okay. Well, there's 2 ways. The first way is a standard promotion cycle. And this is what I use 9 times out of 10. All right. So it has a registration page. So you say, hey, this webinar is coming up soon. Here's what it's about. Here's why you should sign up. Thank you for signing up. Here's how you're going to join. They get on the webinar itself. And then at the end of the webinar, you say, if you want to sign up for this product and go further with me, or this service, or this whatever it is you're selling, because I've sold everything on a webinar, right? Then go here to sign up. And then you have the option, if you wish to present a replay of that webinar. And there are times when you do it and times when you don't do it, right? So this is a template I use. I use the same template for every single presentation, and I hand it over to my Genius Webinar clients, and they just use it and fill in the blanks. More important than that is the structure. Registration, thank you, the sign-up page where you send them to on the webinar itself, and then optionally the replay page. Now, some of you say, Jason, what about evergreen webinars? Because a lot of marketers have marketed to you this concept of these set and forget webinars, these webinars where you don't have to be live. Now, by the way, just so you know, I am live today. It is the 21st of June, and it's 1:45 p.m. Pacific time. I actually prefer live webinars over evergreen webinars, but somebody says, which one's better, Jason? And I say, the one that you want to do first is better. Okay, did you get that? Less important is which one is objectively going to make you more money. More important is which one do you want to do first? Then do that one, because action and motion beat meditation. The less you have to think and the more you can just do, the more money you'll make. And you'll eventually end up doing both. Let's just be truthful with each other. You will do both because it makes more sense to do both than just to do one or to do none. But which one you start with doesn't really matter. So if you don't want to be there live, if you can't be there live, then use the evergreen funnel. It's registration, waiting room, and broadcast page. If you want to be there live at first and you think that'll get it done sooner and make you money sooner, then be live. Then use the standard funnel. Okay? Now, if you are using the standard funnel, this is the promotional sequence, because one of the reasons that webinars make so much money is they're event-based. What's better? Buying your favorite artist's album on iTunes and listening to it on some cheap headphones, or being front and center at their concert live? Most people, they say, I'd rather be at the concert, and I'll pay a lot more money to be at the concert than I will to buy the iTunes songs. That's event-based marketing. And so with event-based marketing, we have a sequence that makes it a special event. So typically this is what we do. It's a 6-day cycle. The 7th day is when it expires. Day 3 is when the webinar occurs. So your audience, or if it's somebody else's audience, that audience, day number 1, they're sent to the registration page. Come to the webinar. Day number 2, they're sent to the registration page. Come to the webinar. Sign up for the webinar. Day number 3, right before the webinar starts, because this is the best time to do this, you invite them one more time. Same audience, right? So they've had 3 invitations to come, sign up, and join this live webinar. Day number 4, then, you send them to the replay page. Limited time replay, not always available, only for a limited time. And by the way, if they go to the replay page, then they can go and sign up for the offer from the replay page. Obviously, on the webinar itself, they can sign up directly from the webinar. Send to the replay page on day 4, on day 5, and on day 6. And then day 7, if they hit that, you say, oops, it's expired. That's real scarcity, and you should always use it. Unfortunately, today, there are more options than ever, and there are more reasons to think it over than ever. And so the number one thing you can do to help somebody do something that they know that they want to do and they know that they should do is to put scarcity and make them make a decision soon to really focus on that. And that's why this sequence is the way that it is. Now, I've tried a whole bunch of other ones with rare exception. This one just makes more money and it's easiest. So this is the one I recommend you start with, okay? Now, here's what's important to understand. A great webinar presentation and a poor promotional sequence and a poor funnel, whatever you want to call it, will still make a ton of money. I've made a lot of money with webinar presentations that did not even have registration and thank you pages and sign up pages and replay pages. All right? The webinar presentation is the most important thing. It is what will get you into an audience faster than anything else. It is what will make you money further, way more than what happens before and after the webinar. Okay? On the flip side, a great funnel, a great promotional scheme with a poor webinar presentation will make you almost no money usually, with rare exception. Now, the reality is, why not do both, right? If you can have turnkey solutions for both, if you can just simply implement both, can you imagine what it's like when you put the best promotional sequence with the best webinar? We call this exponential profits. We call this, oh my goodness, you should not be able to legally make money that fast. We call this when you come home one night and you tell that spouse of yours or that person that's dear to you, you won't believe it, but today alone, I made $16,721. We call that an amazing feeling. You know what we call this? We call this Genius Webinars. That's what I call this, because it's the whole purpose of my life's work is essentially in this training called Genius Webinars to accomplish what I just described and so much more. Now, here's what you need to know about Genius Webinars. The first time I ever did Genius Webinars was not too long ago. I did it in front of a live audience, and each person there paid almost $5,000 to be in the room. We sold the room out. In fact, there were people we had to turn away, and some of these people were industry transformers. We had somebody in there who mails over 1 billion letters for his clients a year offline. We had somebody else who's the #1 trainer for certified public accountants there. We had somebody else who's the #1 trainer for financial advisors. Sean Stevenson there, he's kind of a famous guy in his niche. He's had videos that have had 170 million views on Facebook. These were top dog industry trainer people. And they sat and they paid and they listened to me speak my whole system on how to make a lot of money with webinars. And then they immediately went out and just had just crazy results. 25% of that room immediately within the first few weeks of going through this training had made 10 times their money or more. The beautiful thing, of course, is we recorded every bit of this $5,000 training. We recorded every word I use. We recorded it from multiple camera angles with a professional camera crew. We recorded this with over $250,000 worth of recording, whatever you call it, equipment, right? And we documented this system. And this system is every single thing, the ins and the outs of my whole webinar $100 million system. And so we documented the overview of it. We also discussed how to present your offer, how to price it, how to introduce and show your bonuses, what bonuses work the best for your webinar. I talked about the best ways to use guarantees and scarcity and how to handle objections systematically in real time. I had somebody give me an objection, I would handle it, I'd show the system, and then people would get it, and we would then be able to develop it, and you could use it immediately, right? Broke down every concept. I talked about the content, how we defined outcomes, how we break them down into step-by-step fashions, how we provide the context and the vision of each step and why that's important, how to present the strategy for your content and get commitment. So that way people at the end of this say, who are you and how can I give you money? We talk about the transition in detail. I give you the exact scripts. I show you how to use them. I demonstrate them for you. I let you copy and paste them. We talk about getting the authority and why that's the most important thing and why you have to do that before you do anything else, and exactly how to do that in a systematic fashion, how to create commitment, how to foster hope, how to handle objections in the introduction, how to make mystery and intrigue occur to get maximum retention, focus, and buy-in. And buy-in leads to buying, and then we put the whole thing together. And then I show you little extra special, little simple tweaks that can make a lot of money quickly, even if you don't even use the whole system, like little simple things that you can use immediately if you wish to. Would you like to get your hands on all of these sessions? These are the exact same sessions that some of these industry leaders, or all of these industry leaders, paid $5,000 basically to get their hands on. Well, it gets better than that. In addition, we printed out an actual physical workbook for this training when I did it live in person, and I digitized this. So now you get the PDF version of this workbook. So you can implement and immediately benefit and profit from these exactly step by step. This is a nice workbook. It has an overview. It has the quick reference guides, and it also has fill in the blanks. So you can immediately, using my techniques, puzzle piece together your webinar, because that's the secret. The secret is I give you a bunch of little puzzle pieces, show you how to put them together, and now you have this 6 or 7 figure, beautiful, complete puzzle that you can take out there into the real world. So you get this full guide in PDF form. You can instantly download that. You can instantly download every single session. You don't have to wait. You can start consuming them ASAP with Genius Webinars. Now, just so you understand the value of Genius Webinars, I've had companies pay me millions in royalties for webinars I either consulted on or actually wrote for these companies. And that's a good business model, by the way. You can do that. And if you want to make money right away, write a webinar for somebody else. And my system will allow you to do that. Now, I've helped customers, many customers, make millions and millions of dollars. In fact, they call me the millionaire maker because of my webinars and how they've helped people make millions of dollars with this webinar process already. So for them, it was worth $1 million or more. And as you know, when we originally launched this, everybody paid $4,995 to get only a fraction, actually, of what you're going to get today. Genius Webinars is now instantly available for you to download and to profit from, and not for $4,995. But if you act fast enough for a limited time, you can get started today for just one installment of $14.97 or 4 installments of $3.99 spaced 30 days apart. And not only will this make you a better webinar presenter, this will make you a better business person. This will make you a better communicator. This will just make you a better person. Best of all, when you go to genius-webinars.com/Peggy, and you have to go to that URL, that's the only URL where you can get this special deal for a limited time. But also, when you go to that URL, you're also going to get some extra special bonuses for free if you sign up fast enough. Here are those bonuses. Bonus number 1, immediate webinar profits. If you're in a situation and you say, hey, Jason, I got to make money tomorrow. Can I write a webinar today? Because I have an opportunity to make money with it tomorrow. Could you help me? And the answer is yes. Go to bonus number 1 and just follow this process. It is the simplest, quickest way for you with the least amount of effort. So if you have an immediate opportunity, or if you need to make money immediately, if you say, Jason, I don't know if I have the funds to invest in Genius Webinars for you at genius-webinars.com/Peggy. I don't know if I do. I say invest, and then turn around and go here first, make your money back ASAP plus more. And if you don't, I'll give you your money back. It's as simple as that. So that's the first bonus, immediate webinar profits. Bonus number 2, the ultimate webinar funnel. So I showed you the promotional sequence earlier, and now I'm going to give you every single page. I'm going to give you the registration page. So with a couple of clicks, you now have it yourself. I'm going to give you the thank you page, and I'm going to not just give these to you, I'm going to explain the ins and outs. This is why we set our thank you pages up like this. This is why the registration page works really well. This is how we've tested this all these different ways, and this is the one that you should just use, and you're going to use it because, like I said, a good webinar will make you money. A good funnel won't make you money, but when you put a good webinar and a good funnel together, you make exponential profits with the same audience and the same conversion rates. Okay? So you're going to get a fill in the blank, plug and play templates to drop your perfect webinar into the perfect webinar funnel in your promotion in seconds. Also, you get the full video training walking you through the ins and outs of the strategy behind that, how to set it up, and more. So Jimmy was one of the original people who came to our $4,995 training, and he says we immediately increased our webinars by 10%. And to him, he said that's worth millions because he does it for himself and he does it for his clients. So in addition to the webinar funnel, the ultimate webinar funnel, and the immediate webinar profits, bonus number 3, I'm going to give you my personal slide deck, plus the training of how to use this and how to design your own slides in either Keynote or PowerPoint. Now, if you were observant today and you noticed that I was on the camera, my face was, for almost no amount of time, and a majority of my time was showing you slides, then yeah, there's a reason for that. 9 times out of 10, actually closer to 99 times out of 100, slides will make you more money than any other type of webinar presentation you can do. And I could get into all the reasons why. I'm not going to do that today. I'll just give you one simple one, is people want to see a result and they want to get insight into their problem. And they're not going to do that looking at your face as much as they will looking at a slide. Okay? Now, over the years, I've tested out all kinds of different slide layouts, all different kinds of schemes, all different kinds of configurations. And this is the one that you're looking at today that has made me the most money. I will give that to you, both in PowerPoint and in Keynote format, and you can just plug in your slides to it. One less thing you have to worry about, and the good news is you're getting the best slide deck that exists, at least the one that has more money that's ran through it than any other one, and you get instructions on how to use it as well. So you get my slide deck plus the training on how to use PowerPoint and Keynote. You get the ultimate webinar funnel. You get the immediate webinar profits. Bonus number 4, you get the webinar swipes. So if you want to see actual webinars that I've done that have made millions of dollars, my most profitable one, that's there for. If you want to see the emails that we use and the ways that we promote the webinar, the registration, the follow-up, the replay, you want to see the order forms, the sales pages, all these things, they are there for you to steal. Once you pay me money, you can steal anything of mine and drop it in your business as far as technique goes. Obviously, you can't resell my methodologies and my information, but you can take them and just, you don't have to rewrite them even. You can just put them in and they will work. That's what they're designed for. These bonuses are available to you for a limited time with a special pricing deal at genius-webinars.com/Peggy. Peggy. That's the only link that you're going to go to that's going to give you a deal like this. So in addition to the swipes with all the emails and the promotions that you can just model, and the slide deck, which is the most tested one that anybody could ever offer you when it comes to profitable webinars, and the best funnel, which is also the most tested, and the immediate webinar profits if you need to make money right away. What else do I have for you? I have what we call the Pure Webinars training, where I will show you, because I've done over 100 different webinars. Most of them have broke at least 6 figures, if not more. So you see my real webinars. I break down the techniques behind them. I break down the methods behind them. And then again, you can just copy the ones that make sense for you and put them into your presentations. The real thing is this: it will cost you more in time and money to try to figure this out yourself than it will for you to invest at genius-webinars.com/Peggy. So that's the 5th bonus. Do I have something else? I do have something else for you. Bonus number 6, webinar pitch secrets 1 and 2. These are word for word closes. So earlier when I told you that Ben, when he did his $1 million webinar, I said he just printed out material and read it to his audience. He told him he was reading it to his audience. He read it and he made $1 million. This is the material he printed out. I have developed all sorts of closes for money objections, for time objections, for believability objections, for proof and authority, and so on and so forth. And these are designed to be used to sell any product to any audience. Most of them you don't even need to customize one word of. And there are more closes here for webinars than you can find in every other product that exists out there. You'd have to buy them all and you still wouldn't get them. And the close is the easiest thing to just drop into a presentation and make more money than you're making right now. So you get all these bonuses as well. And finally, we use GoToWebinar, although these techniques apply everywhere else. My team is fully trained in how to set up and run webinars with these. So we have these things called standard operating procedures. So we're going to give those to you as well, so you can just copy those and be up and running, although it doesn't really matter what platform you use. If you want to use Google Hangouts like we're doing today, use Google Hangouts. If you want to use Zoom, use Zoom. If you want to use something else, use something else. The platform doesn't matter. What matters is the presentation, the audience techniques, and the promotional sequence. You have to act, though, before the timer hits 0. Otherwise, this isn't a special offer. This is a special offer for you as long as you act quick enough to get all these bonuses in the special pricing. You can get started for just $14.97 or 4 installments of $3.99 spaced 30 days apart when you go to genius-webinars.com/Peggy. Now, I do have a traffic bonus for you. Before I get into that, I get this question a lot. They say, Jason, our webinar is right for me, because people, they can think of a million reasons not to do something. But the reality is you only need one really good reason to do something. And then it makes the million of other reasons obsolete. They call those excuses, by the way. And people are good at making money, or they're good at making excuses, but they're not good at both. If you can only be good at one, which one do you want to be good at? So here are our webinars right for me. Checklist. Do you feel a moral and ethical responsibility to get solutions into the hands of as many people that can benefit from them as possible? If you do, webinars are perfect for you. Do you feel that somebody who is more educated would have an easier time to say yes to whatever solution you're providing? If so, webinars are perfect for you. Do you suppose it's a smart idea to use multiple different vehicles and communication structures when it comes to marketing your business and your solution? And of course, the webinar, in my opinion, is the best vehicle. But even if it's not for you, it is still an additional vehicle. And the more vehicles I add in my business, the more money I make. And I know that's true for you as well. So perfect. Webinars are for you. And this is the best one. Does your heart gravitate towards wanting to do this, to present with power and persuasion and impact for profit? Well, then webinars, my friend, are absolutely for you. And you need to go to genius-webinars.com/Peggy and sign up right now. Now, this is instantly available to you. This isn't time-dripped, sequence release 1 per week type of stuff. I'm giving you the whole system because you can immediately use the whole system right away. It's made to be implemented ASAP and profit from ASAP. You can get started right now with the special deal for a limited time, and you'll see when it expires. Go to genius-webinars.com/Peggy, and you'll see that countdown timer. When it hits 0, this offer goes away. Get started today for just $14.97 or 4 installments of $3.99. And here's the new bonus that I just finished up. So remember earlier I was talking to you about audiences, and once you have a good webinar, it's not that hard to get in front of other people's audiences, and then use the webinar to split the profits. So whatever that webinar makes, if you get in front of that audience and you sell $50,000 of product, you make 25, they make 25, and the customer's happy. And you could repeat this over and over again. Well, would you like my 7-step process of exactly how to find these people, exactly what to say to get in front of their audience, exactly how to contact them word for word, exactly how to structure the deals, exactly how to connect this with Genius Webinars? You could create a list of 10 people. Once you have my presentation at genius-webinar.com/Peggy, once you have my presentation training, you would need just a list of 10 people. And of those 10 people, it would not take you very long to contact them. And at least one of those 10 people will say yes. And that will result in several $1,000s at the bare minimum of profit for you. Not only have you more than easily paid for Genius Webinars, but you've just created a monster. What I mean by that is what you've just done is something that you can repeat as much as you want. And you can repeat it, and each time you do, you can get better. And when you get better, you make more money. But here's the beautiful thing about this model, and here's the beautiful thing about Genius Webinars. Even when you're at your worst, you're still better than other people's best. So you can do almost everything wrong, but if you follow the framework, you will profit in spite of yourself. Do you want to start profiting in spite of yourself? Then this is what you need to do. You need to say, yes, I'm ready. Yes, I'm in. Yes, it's time to do this. Go to genius-webinars.com/Peggy and let's get going. Now, if you're a consultant, because it's been strange, but in the last 6 months, I've encountered a lot of consultants that says, Jason, I want to use webinars, but I'm in the consulting business. I don't sell products. I don't sell software. I don't sell, digital stuff. I don't sell coaching and online training. I have this whole deal where they pay me a lot of money to consult in their business. How do I use webinars? Well, I say, well, you're in good company because I've made multiple millions of dollars selling consultant stuff, consultancy work via webinars. And the model is very similar. There's just a couple ways that I've tweaked it that I think you're going to be very, very excited about. And this is the same model that I taught the PGI consultants. So this is Proctor Gallagher Institute. So I have personally trained Bob Proctor in how to use webinars. He is a client of mine. Also, they asked me to come in and train their consultants because their consultants are selling products and they're typically doing it now one-to-one over the telephone or in person. They said, Jason, how can these people use webinars in their audience to their audience so they can do one-to-many so they don't have to actually be in front of somebody? And can they make more money? I said, absolutely. So I broke this down, showed them my framework in this training, and it's yours for free. This is a new bonus we just added recently. Here's another new bonus. And so on March 7th, earlier this year, I guess, we just processed all these out. I did 4 hours of training on exactly the psychology of evergreen webinars, when to use them for the most profit, how to scale them, how to design them, so on and so forth. And honestly, this might be the very best training I've ever did. And I will tell you why, because every single person in that room was a millionaire. And so I kind of stepped it up live in person. I did this training, and I will sell this in the future for $497 on its own. However, today you can get it for free at genius-webinars.com/Peggy. Plus, I have another bonus for you because this is my life's work. So I'm constantly taking the best thing here and just making it better for all my customers. And they've gotten unlimited updates for life without paying a single penny more. So when you get started today, not only get everything I'm showing you here, you'll get more stuff that I haven't even thought about yet, but we'll think about one day, give it to you the next day, and you'll be glad to have it. So recently I was hired by Kevin Harrington. Kevin Harrington's built 20 companies to $100 million from scratch. Kevin Harrington was an original Shark Tank member, and Kevin Harrington acquired the rights to Zig Ziglar's material. And then Kevin hired me to do the webinar pitch for them. The first thing we did is went to his audience that had already said no to this offer, and we got a whole bunch of people to say yes. Now, as soon as I wrote this webinar, when it was done, the very next day, I sat and broke it down to my Genius Webinar clients. I said, this is what I was thinking when I designed this. This is what happened, warts and all, the good and the bad. If you want to see webinars done in the real world, this bonus is for you as well. Also, I have 2 more funnels for you that you can just plug and play. So the evergreen webinar funnel, if you want to run those, I have a push button solution for you so you can set those up. We also have the special webinar funnel called the NDA funnel, and I have a full training on how to use that as well. That's for you as a bonus too. All of these are available to you for a very limited time. All the bonuses, everything for just $14.97 or 4 installments of $3.99 at genius-webinars.com/Peggy. I have one more bonus for you today that I'd like to talk about. This is the last bonus. We just freshly created this because people wanted to know, Jason, How do you sell products that don't exist on webinars? So you sell the idea of the product first, and only after you do the webinar do you then create the product. That's how I really got leverage in my business to make my first $1 million. And so I said, oh yeah, you're right. That is a good technique. Let me break it down for you. And that's just what we did. There is no better way I have found to simultaneously create your own products that make money and make money before you create the product. It is a better product too, because your audience will help create the product with you, which will A, make them more likely to spend money with you, and B, it will make you a better product because you don't have to guess. You don't have to think about it. You know what should be in that product. Would you like that secret? That's yours as well. Genius-webinars.com/Peggy. I want you to get started right now. All right. You know it and I know it. This is the thing for you to finally turn your financial situation around. You've been waiting for it. Now here it is. Take advantage of it. There is a limited time before this does expire. It expires at next Monday at 11:59 p.m. Pacific time. Get in before then. The sooner you get in, though, the sooner you can download it and start using it. Genius-webinars.com/Peggy. It's then available for you to download. Now, I have a couple questions I'm going to answer already that have been sent over to me by my team. Before I do that, though, I want you to know I am going to be here for a little bit longer. So if you have some questions yet that will help you determine if this is the decision that you need to make today, now is the time to put them into the chat box. And know this, it's a little bit of a delay, so I might not be able to answer them instantaneously, but if I feel like they're worth answering, my promise to you is I will answer them before I head out here today. So let me answer a couple questions, and I want to bring Peggy back as well too, and then I'm going to answer some more questions. So, so here's a question that I got from. Oh, this is funny. So Marcy asked, and maybe she asked this earlier. It's not exactly related to what I'm talking about here, but she wants to get a best-selling book. And she wants every piece of advice possible. First of all, you do not want every piece of advice possible because you'll be more confused than you were before you started. What you want to know is what's the most effective way that I can accomplish that goal. Now, I will tell you, I just did a bestseller book, and it was a bestseller in 8 different categories. And it was one of the top selling books on all of Amazon Kindle too, by the way, for a period of time. And guess what we did to make it so? We used a webinar. Yep. The webinar is the rising tide that lifts all boats. I don't care what you're trying to do. The webinar just seems to be the thing to do it. Okay. Now, Lori says, should I release a webinar near release or in advance? Should my webinar be about, okay, this or that? She's wanting to know, should I gain endorsement? Should I do this or should I do that with it? The reality is you should always do your webinar as quickly as you possibly can because motion beats meditation. A webinar that doesn't exist on the internet will make you $0. But even a webinar that's not as good as it could be, but is done, will make you money. So get it going and then get it right. The number one thing that we teach in Genius Webinars is speed of implementation is more important than anything else. I've seen people sit there and wait 6 or 8 weeks to torture themselves through creating and writing webinars. And that is sad because a webinar with my system is going to be about the quickest, easiest thing you've ever done. It will take you almost no time. You put it out there and then you make some money for it. And when it's done, you go back and then you can tweak it and make more money. Tweak it and make more money. I had webinars out there that I feel I'm almost embarrassed by because they're 20% of what they could be, but they still made me millions of dollars. And then after I was successful with them, then I said, maybe we can improve them. But by then I felt like I didn't need to anymore. Does that make sense? And that's what you want to do. The idea here is the webinar doesn't have to be anywhere close to perfect. It doesn't have to be refined. It's not like a tightrope that you're walking where one misstep and you're screwed. A webinar is so effective that even if you do it half-cocked, as long as you're following my formula, you will meet with success usually sooner, if not later. And by later, I don't mean that much later. Okay? Genius-webinars.com/Peggy. Okay, what do you think about having guests on as webinars to feature to help with authority and content? That's a good question, right? And the answer to that is absolutely you can. When I show you how to use authority, you're going to laugh because you're going to say, oh my God, no wonder why I'm having trouble right now accomplishing my goals because people don't take me seriously. And then you can say, oh man, I can see now how doing this, this, and this, people will start to take me extremely serious. By the way, even if you're not a big deal, these techniques will make you a big deal. So my only word of caution to you is use these for good, okay? because these techniques will make even people who don't deserve to be a big deal, because the technique is more important than the reality. Now, the idea here is what we do is match reality with perception. And so that's, you just take the best part of yourself and let people know about that. But unfortunately, almost nobody does that because they don't know how to. Now you do know how to. Genius Webinars, genius-webinars.com/Peggy. Okay. Are people who already have a product or an audience worried about letting you do a webinar if you don't have much experience presenting or results to show? And the answer is no. Now, we can go into all the little whys. Most of them, I'm not even sure why, but that's not important, right? If it's raining outside, do you question if it's raining outside or not? If the weatherman told you it's not raining outside, so you shouldn't pack an umbrella, but you look out your window and you see rain, do you pack the umbrella or do you not? And the answer is you pack the umbrella, right? I'm just telling you, like when you look outside and see rain, there is an endless supply of people with audiences who just say, sure, let's try your webinar out. Sure, I'll put you in front of my audience. I don't even know why. Don't care why. It just is. Even with us, it's not that hard. Now, I'm not going to say when you're going to write a webinar that I'm going to put you in front of my audience, because if it doesn't make sense, if it doesn't match my audience, then I'll say no, right? But there's somebody out there who will who has an audience that matches your presentation that will say yes. And by the way, we are the hardest to say yes to. And you saw how many times we've said yes. And we're the hardest. So everybody else is easier. Now, they don't have the potential to make you the kind of money I can make you right away. But the idea is this. You don't sell out Madison Square Garden without first working your material in the smaller nightclubs, right? You don't want to go right to the top. Make tens of thousands of dollars before you go to hundreds of thousands of dollars. So when you get in a position to make hundreds of thousands of dollars, you make a lot more of it sooner, okay? Is it best to use slides or show myself on camera? Okay, so that was probably asked before I gave the answer. The answer is it's best to use slides. There are almost zero exceptions to that. And the exceptions still don't hurt you if you end up using slides. So in every single case, we start a presentation for whatever we're selling using slides. 95% of my webinar money has come from slides, and only 5% of it has come from doing anything else. All right. Do you do the webinar 2, 3, 4 times a day? How often is best? I do a webinar at once a day at most, unless somebody says, Jason, I have 3 audiences that I can put you in front of today, and there's about 1,000 of them. Do you want to do it? And the answer to that for me is maybe, only because I've made multiple millions of dollars already, so I'm not exactly super motivated. When I was younger, the answer was always yes. Anytime there's an audience you can serve and help and then have the opportunity to sell via a webinar, you should say yes until you reach a point of complete financial independence. Now, Peggy, she brought up a very good point earlier when she says, I'm a balanced man, and I am. More so these days than I used to be when I was younger. Family is extremely important to me. My personal time and my health is extremely important to me. So when I work, but I don't work all the time. In fact, I work a lot less than most people do. And I'm not ashamed to admit that. I'm proud to admit that. But the reason why is because once you master a skill like webinars, then you can choose to not have to work as much and be very confident and secure with your financial situation. But I will also tell you, when you're starting out, it's better to overdo it than underdo it. Because once you turn the corner on this, you never go back to the way you were. You never have to. I will tell you this. This is the ultimate sales pitch I can give you on this. And I should have put this in the slides. Once you know how to do a webinar the way I tell you, you will never feel uncomfortable with money again. Because you now have a skill in you that no matter what happens, you have the ability to pull in large chunks of money in short periods of time. That's the webinar. And I want you to do that. And I want you to sign up at genius-webinars.com/Peggy so you can start to do that ASAP. Okay? Is that cool? All right. So I'm going to take a quick drink break here real fast. Peggy, if you're there and you can unmute yourself, I would love for you to weigh in on this and tell your story and talk about why webinars are so important and why your audience should consider adding them to their arsenal, which is their business and their profit-getting activities.
Absolutely, Jason. Well, when I met you, it was through Bob Proctor, and you're absolutely right. You were the one that was teaching him. And one of the things that I love about Bob is he's been studying success for 58 years. And some of the things that you said really resonated with me because I've heard Bob talk about many years ago. He said, as a matter of fact, it was almost 40 years ago. He says, when you learn how to sell, you'll never go hungry. You'll always be able to feed your family, feed yourself, and you can create your own economy. And, we're living in a very digital world nowadays. I mean, you just see people at a restaurant and they're sitting there and they're on their phones and we're all attached. We're connected. There's 7 billion people in the world, but there's 7 billion devices. Not everybody's online, but there's about 3 billion people that are online. And it doesn't matter where you are. You're there in your home right now, and I'm here in my home. We've got people from all over the world that have joined us here. And what this does, what you're offering here with Genius Webinars is the flexibility that you can build your empire, create your own economy, and really connect to something that you love, something that you're passionate about. And even if you may have been shy or you may not consider yourself an entrepreneur or a salesperson, one of the things that I really love about what you create is that in your brain, you think in systems. And not everybody thinks that way. And so a lot of people are, sitting there and they're really foggy and they need their handheld. They need the systems. And you're so generous with all of your knowledge, with your experience. You've made so many millionaires. And what I love is that you give people scripts. You give them the templates. You give them the step-by-step. And when I first got a hold, like I knew instinctively that you were the man that could really help me take my business to another level. And I remember, studying and investing in Genius Webinars and beginning to implement what I was learning from you, and you being so generous with use my scripts and follow this format. And I use it for the very first time. And honestly, I remember standing there almost like dumbfounded when I saw people racing to the stage or people registering and thinking, wow, this stuff really works. It's like cookie cutter. It's something that's extremely effective. And I really believe that when people start to use this, and you teach in such a way that's so easy to understand, but when people implement it, it can really skyrocket results. And just like your own experience, you went from 1 million to 10 million within 1 year, and you've created so many millionaires. And I know you've got countless examples and clients that have really followed through. And it doesn't matter where you come from. So for those of you that are watching this, you're thinking, I don't know, maybe I'm too shy. Maybe I don't have enough information. I'm technically challenged. Like Jason and I were going to do a test on the webinar and I screwed it up and I deleted the link and messed it up. So you don't have to be technically competent. If you can watch a webinar, if you have an understanding of the English language, and if you have a desire to really make some changes in your life and in your business, perhaps subsidize your income, replace your income, take your annual income, make it your monthly income, well, you are in the right place. You're here for a reason. So I absolutely highly recommend. I wouldn't be doing this webinar if I didn't recommend Jason and if I hadn't already implemented what he's teaching here right now. So everybody should be heading over to the genius-webinars.com/Peggy and getting themselves right in this program because you can instantly access it.
Well said.
Thank you. Thank you so much, Jason. I really appreciate you being here. I really appreciate everyone who joined in here. We've had, as I said, people from all over the country that have been here. I personally was sitting here taking lots of notes, and I am in the program, but still learning. I mean, that's what I love about you is this continuous giving, this spirit of giving and these bonuses. I mean, I was sitting there with my mouth hanging open going, well, holy smokes, look what he's throwing in to this deal. And the investment is like, shocking. It really is shocking. I can't believe it. I remember years ago when I went to one of Bob's seminars and he was standing in front of the room and he said to the audience, he said, if I can show you how to make $10,000, what's it worth to you? And I remember thinking about the question myself, thinking, well, if he can show me how to make $10,000, there's like an endless amount that it's worth to me. I don't know. Like, I don't even know if he can put a price tag on that. And he asked the people in the audience, and some people said, well, it's worth $10,000 because if you can teach me how to make $10,000, it's worth $10,000. And then other people were saying, well, I think it's worth $100,000 because if you can teach me how to earn $10,000, I can repeat it and repeat it and repeat it and do it again. And so there are a variety of different answers, and they all sort of started at 10 grand. And that's really what we're looking at here. What you're sharing is an understanding that can really have people, and you've had people from all walks of life join your program and get results. So, you know, for anyone who's really looking for results, you are in the right place at the right time, and get in and get started right away. Don't wait another minute. Dive right in. Jason's giving you immediate access to all of the content and the bonuses. And, you know, I'm just blown away with your sense of generosity and your spirit of giving, Jason, and of course, your knowledge as well. I really appreciate you. And I know that anyone who gets involved in this program is going to be very, very glad that they did.
Excellent. And I've seen some people already sign up, and I appreciate you, and I can't wait to see how I can serve and help you. And it's really funny too, Peggy, because somebody asked me about why do you have so many bonuses? And the reality is, first of all, I don't feel like I do. But second of all, the reason is because I've done this for 10 years, actually 11, technically. This is my 11th year, but I've never taught this before. And I think that was my own weakness, because I always said to myself, no, people don't want to do webinars. They want the push button solution, and they want the simple, bright, shiny object. They don't want to be in front of an audience. They don't want to have to put themselves out there. And I was resistant, you know, and then so many people asked me, can you do webinars, Jason? Can you teach me how to do them? And so I started taking on clients, and these clients would pay me obscene amounts of money. The hardest part about it was asking them for that much money. That was the hardest part, because they would say yes. And, you know, clients pay me $100,000 to help them with their webinar. So I thought, okay, maybe there's a couple people out here that I could help. And then the more and more people I encountered, the more people just realized, hey, listen, how is everybody else selling me? Whatever they're selling me, they seem to be selling me via webinar. Huh, maybe there's something to it. And so here's what happened, just so you know the story. The story goes like this. They started going out there and looking at who else teaches how to do webinars. And unfortunately, what they found was people who learned from me were then teaching how to do webinars. And they were teaching my stuff, but not as good as I am, because you can't copy something and make it better than the original, right? You get degradation, it actually becomes worse. And so eventually it got to the point where so many people were saying, well, so-and-so is now showing some of your webinar stuff, Jason. So-and-so is now showing some of your webinar stuff. And that's more than anything motivated me to say, okay, I better put it out there once and for all. Because once I do, it'll be pretty clear that not only will this person, now these people, I'm seeing all these people getting excited and wanting to use webinars because they realize it is the most effective thing to sell anything. And I do mean anything. And then I said, if they want that, I'm going to give them that. And that's why only at the end of last year did we put this out there. But what I know about webinars and what I can continue to add to it is almost endless, because I'm learning new stuff all the time. And so that's why we're adding new things in there. People want to know more about evergreens, and they want to go more in depth in that. Okay, I'll show you that, right? Other people want to know, hey, Jason, you do this thing where you sell a product before it even exists. How do I do that? You want to know about that? I'll show you how to do that. People say, what about consultant? How do you sell consultants work on a webinar? Well, I'll show you how I've done this, because I've done it everywhere. Somebody asked me right here on this call, they said, hey, what about physical products? And the answer is, I've sold millions of dollars of physical products. Now, first of all, physical products have been sold for years on infomercials, and Kevin Harrington is a client of mine, and he invented the infomercial, and all they sold was physical products on there. But even on webinars, we have sold physical products on a webinar more effectively than any other type of thing. And you can do that even with slides, just like I'm showing you here today, because the reality is this. And this is really important for you to understand. Every purchase is easier to make if you better educate somebody prior to the purchase. There's not a product that you can sell where giving information in advance of that won't help sell it even better, provided it's the right type of information. Now, I don't care what it is that people buy, whether it's a car, whether it's a home, whatever it is. There's only a few pieces of information that you need to know to make the right decision. I mean, think about that. A house could be hundreds of thousands of dollars or millions of dollars, and you don't take out some complicated scheme of, here are the 176,000 things I need to consider before I make a decision. There's like 6 things. It's like, oh, it's by this school district. That's good for my kids. Oh, look at the view in the backyard. Oh, it's got this kind of flooring in it. It's got this many bedrooms, right? There's only a couple. Any decision only has a few things that need to take into consideration. Now, if somebody's spending a couple $100 or a couple $1,000, the better you can show them what those things are and what's important to them to help them make a better decision, the more likely they are to spend money with you than anybody else. And the webinar is the thing that allows that to occur the easiest, even if you don't know what you're doing. And my system will show you how to do it the easiest way and know what you're doing. Okay? All right, Peggy, I could go on forever. It's 2:30 my time. That's my hard stop here. genius-webinars.com/Peggy. That's where people need to go to sign up before this offer expires. Peggy, I really do appreciate you, and I'm so fortunate to have you in my life, and I'm so glad to be able to help you today with your mission and your goals, and you to help me with mine. Thank you so much.
Well, you are the best, Jason. I really appreciate you, and I really appreciate everyone who tuned in today and watched this. And there's people that have already taken action. It's the action takers. You know, last week when I was in Toronto with Bob Proctor, he said that one of the real signs of someone who's successful, and Napoleon Hill studied 500 people, is the ability to make a decision and make it fast. So for those of you that have made a decision, you made it fast, well, that's already demonstrating to us that you're serious about your success. And we're very serious about your success as well. So I want to thank you for being here. Thank you, Jason. Head on over to genius-webinars.com/Peggy. Get yourself registered. I'm in the program as well. I'll see you in there, and I look forward to hearing more about your success. All right, everyone. Thanks so much. Thanks, Jason. We'll see you soon.
Thank you.
Okay. Bye-bye for now.